Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the ongoing lecture series on the English novel. The novel in discussion today is a 19th century text by Oscar Wilde called The Picture of Dorian Gray. It was written in 1890 and is a seminal work of the century. So in the last lecture, I introduced the idea of how there is the tension in different value systems evident in the novel, and how each of the three central characters represents a particular way of life or a particular worldview. So the first character that we started discussing was Basil Hallward, who's a painter in the text, the one who paints the picture or portrait of Dorian Gray. We discussed how this character represents the first value system, that is of beauty, creativity, or aesthetic, and so we saw that his fascination with Dorian and how the subject of art then not just consumes Basil's artwork but also his personality to a large extent. So the next thing that we also need to understand in this idea or value system is that the distortion that the author exhibits through the character of Basil, and this lies in the overindulgence in beauty and a worshipping of it. So as I've pointed out, that Basil's fascination was, to a very large extent such that one can see that it is that he goes overboard. So this excessive indulgence then comes across as a distortion in the idea of beauty or in the idea of aesthetic engagement with the surroundings. So now why is it referred to as a distortion, or what is the distortion over here? The distortion lies in the excesses, right? And how does the novel present it? We see that towards the end of the novel, Basil realizes how he had really consumed his entire being with Dorian Gray, to the extent that when Dorian Gray's personality, or when his character starts to change, when Dorian Gray makes different choices in life and moves away from Basil, he is unable to take it. He is unable to stand this change or this development in Dorian Gray, and that then spells a lot of pain for Basil. And this is the moment when he realizes that how he had gone completely wrong in indulging excessively with the subject of his art and the artwork that he had created. If you remember, he says that I've put too much of myself in this portrait of Dorian that I had painted, and he says that this is something which is which could have been avoided. Now in the novel he says, and I quote, "I worshipped you too much. I'm punished for it. You worshipped yourself too much. We are both punished," unquote. So the first part of the quote talks about what? Talks about Basil's worship of Dorian Gray, worship of his beauty, right? Now in the process, what also happened was, now here is, I told you that Dorian Gray was this young boy who was innocent, who was impressionable. So when Basil treats Dorian in this manner, when he admires this portrait of Dorian that he has created, what he does is that he instills this kind of pride even in Dorian. So Dorian, when he sees himself in that portrait through the eyes of the artist, he also begins to have a very exaggerated sense of himself. Therefore, the second part of this text, what does it of this quote? What does it say? You worshipped yourself too much, and we both are punished. Now, where does the punishment lie? We will very shortly discuss, and you will see that punishment in the trajectory of the character of Dorian Gray. But what we need to understand is that Oscar Wilde over here is making a comment on the fact that how obsession of beauty is suspect, right? Be it beauty of one's own creation, which is the case of the artist, painter Basil, or be it obsession with beauty of oneself, which begins to happen in Dorian Gray when he sees the portrait, when he is made to believe how wonderful looking he is. So this entire idea, this overindulgence in beauty is a suspect according to Oscar Wilde, and we see this emphasized at the time when Basil's understanding of art also then undergoes a change. So initially he puts too much of himself in the art to the extent that he says that I cannot exhibit it, right? He associates so closely with his creation, but then later on, as he as things progress, as he notices the changes in Dorian Gray as well, he comes to this realization and he says, and I quote, "Art is more abstract than we fancy," unquote. So now over here we see that this personal association is pitched against the abstraction in art, right? So the novel then also brings out this evolution in understanding of what art is and the kind of relationship that a creator has with his own creation. So this first character then who represents beauty and an aesthetic approach stands problematized in the sense that when one becomes obsessive with this kind of idea or way of life, that is problematic. Now coming to the second value system represented by Lord Harry, who is Basil's friend. Now he represents a life defined by sense experience, indulgence and impulse, right? Now this involves radical and almost anarchic temperament that we notice in Harry throughout the novel. And now what the author refers to this is as sinful or hedonistic. So Harry then stands for a hedonistic approach to life. And what does this word imply? It implies an excessive indulgence in sense experience without paying heed to any structures. The only thing that matters is pleasure, the idea of beauty being enjoyed by an individual without giving a thought to any kind of principles, morals, or any structures for that matter. So if we look at various utterances by Harry, you will understand the character that he is and the value that he stands for. So the first quotation that I would like to take up is this, where he says, "I like persons better than principles, and I like persons with no principles better than anything else in the world." So I'll very quickly read this again for you to understand it still better. I like persons better than principles, and I like persons with no principles better than anything else in the world. So what is challenged over here? We understand that Harry has no principles that he abides by. All that he is driven by is impulse, is intuition, is instinct in the moment. And he says that I also appreciate people who live this way, right? So this establishes him as a person who will not pay a lot of attention to morals and who will always have a very indulgent view of life. At another place he says, conscience and cowardice are really the same things, Basil, unquote. Now isn't this very, very telling? He says, now what is conscience? Conscience is your sense of right and wrong. And he says that this ability within inherent in man to be able to distinguish right from wrong is nothing but cowardice. He says that you are being fearful, you are being a coward if you kind of understand, or if you listen to the voice of conscience. Again, what does it highlight? It highlights a personality, a character who lives only by means of sense experience. So then what we see is that this character represents aesthetic temperament taken to the extremes. I'm sure you would have by now in these quotations understood that how Harry lives in extremes, and his association with beauty or pleasurable experience is kind of beyond a certain limit, I wouldn't say, but a certain kind of understanding. Now, this excess is again evident in further assertions by this character, where he says the senses could refine and the intellect could degrade. Now, what is happening over here? We clearly see that intellect is considered to be not as worthy by Harry as senses are. He says that senses have the ability to refine an individual, to give that individual that kind of an edge, to give the individual that sense of refinement, while intellect degrades. So we clearly notice what? Where he is siding with the senses and completely rejecting the intellect. So what does this exemplify? The excess that is associated with Harry. Now, the narrator as well in the text says that Lord Harry had the charm of being very dangerous. He was too clever and too cynical. Now, this reference brings our attention to the kind of impact such an individual has over people around him. A person who is given to excesses, a person who is given to indulgence, a person who is hedonistic. What kind of an impact does he have? He is dangerous. And he is what? Very clever and cynical. Cynical, why? Because he has no faith in the ideas of goodness, the idea of sensitivity, the idea of respect for another. All that such a value system cares about is the self and fulfillment of pleasures of the self. Right? And we see this in Harry's impact on Dorian Gray. Right? So, students, for a minute I would like to draw your attention to this fact that how Dorian Gray then becomes the center subject who undergoes the impact of these two characters. First is Basil and the second is Harry. So, Basil instills that kind of narcissism in Dorian Gray, and Hallward we are seen we see that how he ensnares or enchants Dorian Gray with his subversive ideas. So that's the kind of impact Hallward has, and Dorian Gray then becomes a subject of these two value systems, which are then seen to impact this innocent individual. So Harry then feeds his narcissism, the narcissism of Dorian Gray, by harping on how precious youth is, right? So at the time when portrait of Dorian Gray is complete, and Basil is in complete awe of it, and so is Dorian Gray, what does Lord Harry do? He talks about the idea of youth, and he tells Dorian Gray how precious and important his youth is, how precious and important his beauty is, and he says that Dorian Gray should do all that it takes to preserve it. Now, this kind of an assertion then is taken so seriously by Dorian that we see its negative impact on him eventually as the novel progresses. So let's see what Harry says. He says, to get back one's youth, one merely has to repeat one's follies, unquote. So Dorian Gray asks him that when one ages, how does one retain that youth? Now, what is the idea of youth for Harry? It lies in follies. Follies means mistakes. So he says that if you repeat your mistakes, that is what comprises being young. Now, what is happening? again, he's instilling some kind of a subversive way of life, a way of life that involves the rejection of any kind of principle, morality, but only involves in indulgence. Yes. So the character we see of Harry stays right till the end, but his value system, all that he stands for, the hedonism that he embodies, stands problematized in the destructive influence it has on Dorian. Now, Basil in the text we see is towards the end he gets killed by Dorian himself. Why? Because Dorian is unable to come to terms with the perversion in his soul that starts to set in as he lives by the ways prescribed by Harry, right? So the character of Basil, who instills narcissism, comes to an end, but the character of Harry, he stays till the end. But we notice that even though this character stays, the value system is problematized because we notice a destructive influence on Dorian. This influence is seen in these words by Dorian Gray, where he says, Lord Harry is right. Youth is the only thing worth having. When I find myself growing old, I shall kill myself. Unquote. Now, what is happening over here? We see the enchantment, we see the complete, the deep impression that Harry has on Dorian Gray, to the extent that Dorian believes every word of what Harry says. Why? Because those kind of ideas fascinate this innocent individual. Now, youth, which Harry says is so precious, has such a deep impact on Dorian Gray that he says that if at all I age, I'm going to kill myself. Now, this is mentioned sometime in the beginning of the novel, and this is seen to foreshadow what actually happens to Dorian. So this second value system of hedonism, of indulgence, as embodied in Harry, stands problematized in the excesses that it propagates and the kind of influence it has on Dorian Gray. So we move to the third value system that Oscar Wilde talks about in the text, and we see his intention is embodied in Dorian Gray, who I've established is the sitter for Basil's work. Now, Dorian Gray represents innocence of an impressionable, inexperienced young boy, one on whom influences of the other two wreak havoc, right? So Basil stood for beauty or aesthetic appreciation, or which verges on narcissism. Harry stood for indulgence, and both these value systems have a very deep impact on Dorian Gray, who represents innocence. He is so impressionable that we see him completely abide by what these two people make him believe. And what happens? We see that his entire personality is consumed in the perversion which is represented by the two values. So we are able to notice this particularly in the character trajectory that is there in this particular character. So Dorian Gray begins with innocence when he's sitting as a subject for the art of Basil. What happens once the portrait is ready and the excessive appreciation of Basil, the excessive appreciation by Basil of Dorian Gray's beauty instills some kind of pride, some kind of narcissism in Dorian Gray, where he begins to take himself way too seriously, right? And then this leads to a distorted understanding of beauty. Now, what do we mean by distorted understanding? Dorian Gray begins to feel that because he is so good looking, because he is so wonderful, his idea of beauty is only exterior, is only material, and anything which does not, so to say, fit in that mold, he completely rejects. And this happens in his very short affair with this girl called Sybil Vane. Now, Sybil Vane is this actress on stage who acts out Shakespeare's plays, right? And Dorian really admires her for the art that she represents, for the wonderful artist that she is. But at one point, she gives a very bad performance, and that is intentional. And that's the moment when Dorian Gray completely spurns her. He rejects her, saying that you have broken my ideal of beauty that I had. So what is happening over here? Dorian Gray is so obsessed with his own idea of beauty that the moment the other individual did not subscribe to it, he rejects her. And what happens? She's so heartbroken that she ends up committing suicide. And after that, we see in the novel that Dorian Gray is, constantly living with this guilt of having killed an individual. So what has happened? From innocence, we see this kind of distortion which occurs in Dorian Gray. There are moments when he has spurts of conscience where he thinks that, where is he headed? Where is he headed? The kind of acts that he's indulging in, when he starts to live his life according to how Harry, says, Dorian does have these moments wherein he feels that he's not doing something entirely right, but then he instead of addressing it, he's too weak to address these difficulties that he confronts. Instead, what he does is he resorts to escapism, which is the next important development in this character. Now, how do we see escapism? Now, this portrait, which was an emblem of his beauty, then starts to haunt Dorian Gray. Why? Because this perversion that is evident in him is because of that initial pride in himself that he got after he looked at the portrait and when he let Harry's ideas influence him. So now the portrait begins to haunt him. What does he do? He burns it. Right? What is he doing? He is only escaping reality. He's removing the physical manifestations of all that which remind him of this, successive perversion which is happening in Dorian Gray, but he's unable to express it. So towards the end, what happens? He is so ridden with guilt that he ends up killing himself. Right? In this trajectory, talking about it, the novelist says that there were moments when he looked at evil simply as a mode through which he could realize his conception of the beautiful. So what has happened over here? This extremely innocent individual now looks at evil as something which is nothing but a conception of the beautiful, and this is what spells the destruction of this person. And right before he dies, we see the writer say that he felt a wild longing for the unstained purity of his boyhood, unquote. So what is happening? He sees all the distortions that he has gone through because of the acquired values of Harry and Basil, and now what he longs for are his innocent days of untainted boyhood. So what do we see over here then? That the author problematizes all three value systems, okay? The idea of beauty, the idea of indulgence, and the idea of innocence, right? So while he makes us aware of the possible distortions in the first two, represented by Basil and Harry, we see in the case of Dorian Gray that even innocence is not sustainable. So where does the answer lie? Right? This is the question that keeps lurking in the reader's mind even after the novel has ended, and we wonder that what is it that Wilde sides with but it's not clear, because Wilde does not give us very decisive answers in the text. What he presents instead is this state of tension or this conundrum which defines the perspective of the writer and the reader, and the author shares it with the with the one who is approaching the text. Now, the second important thing that we also need to remember, so apart from this tension, is that there is a dialectic understanding of art. As I explained in the beginning as well, what is this dialectic understanding? We see in the novel that it is both abstract, and art also changes under the weight of action and choices and time. So through the character of Basil, we see that there is an abstraction in art which is appreciated by the artist, but at the same time there is another understanding of art which is evident by means of the portrait. Now, what happens to the portrait as Dorian Gray moves towards sin from innocence? We see that the beautiful portrait also starts to undergo some kind of distortions or changes, and this is what which comes to haunt Dorian Gray as well. So what is happening over here? It's a comment on how art then is not only abstract, but it also, on the other hand, bears the weight of choices made, of the time that it is painted in, and it also bears the weight of action. So art is not inert, but it does carry influences of the surroundings. So these two evidently or supposedly contrasting views of art are then presented in the text. And the third important thing which Oscar Wilde highlights in this novel is then the author's engagement with beauty and aesthetic, which then seems to represent a decisive rejection of commercialism, of growing capitalism and hypocrisy of Victorian values. So you would have noticed that these three values that Oscar Wilde talks about, or these values which stand out in the text and are in a state of tension, that is of beauty, indulgence and innocence, bring out a complete rejection of the commercialism which was characteristic of capitalism, right? So assertion of beauty, aesthetic and its problems definitely is then some kind of an alternative, or some kind of a questioning of the other kind of values that are of the self and money, right? And the hypocrisy also of Victorianism stands problematized in the idea of how author talks about art, talks about how art and the self are important, and the different understanding of associated with art. So all these ideas then we see reflected in the text, the picture of Dorian Gray. We don't have as much time, but I will also urge you to read the preface of this book, which is another very important document and is widely quoted as talking about, in fact it is quoted as a very decisive statement on the art and art for art's sake, which is the which is also the slogan for the movement that this text belongs to. I hope that with these ideas in mind, you will be able to better appreciate this classic novel of Oscar Wilde, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Thank you.